What's so interesting about this? There's not much to it. There's no movement, no melody, no harmony. Why would I care? Let me show you. This is a shruti box. It's a traditional Indian instrument designed to sustain a continuous drone. These cloth bellows push air through high-quality brass reeds to produce the drone. It may seem simple, but this sound has been at the heart of one of the most ancient and continued musical traditions for thousands of years, and I will also be utilizing it for my original composition at the end of this video. Before there were symphonies, jazz bands, or even most instruments we know today, people were using drones. They show up everywhere. The tempura in India, the chants of the Eastern Orthodox Church, the didgeridoo in Australia, the bagpipes in Scotland, Western minimalism, and even film and popular music today. The shruti box first appeared in India in the late 19th century. It was inspired by the harmonium, a European instrument brought by missionaries, which was inspired by the Chinese sheng, an ancient wind instrument still in use today that pushes air through bamboo reeds. The harmonium was adapted for Indian classical performance by adjusting the harmonium stops and removing the keyboard, but keeping the bellows. While limited, it becomes a canvas for melody and harmony, not by changing, but by letting everything else change around it. In Indian classical music, especially Carnatic music from South India, the drone isn't just background, it's the performance's center of gravity. Every performance begins and ends with it. Traditionally, this sound would come from a tempura, a long neck string instrument plucked in slow cycles. But as concerts moved to smaller spaces and musicians traveled more, the shruti box became a portable alternative. In Carnatic tradition, the drone does more than fill space. It defines intonation. If you've ever listened to professional Carnatic singers before, you are probably well aware of their intense intonation skills. Because Indian classical music uses microtones, notes that fall in between our 12-tone Western pitches, the constant drone allows singers and instrumentalists to align perfectly to the raga's exact pitch center. It's not about fixed notes, it's about relationships between the notes, the pushes and pulls to resolve or hold dissonance. Every phrase and every ornament bends and resolves against that unchanging hum of the drone. However, the drone is not treated as an accompaniment, but rather as the air they breathe. Arguably, the most important part of the drone is the atmosphere it creates. This breath of stillness, and with it, these vocalists are able to show such a wide range of emotions. To hear the drone's power in context, listen to this performance by Shruti Jairaman from her Tirupavai concert at the Margazi Sangeeta Utsavam. From the very first moment, you can feel the hum of the drone filling the venue. Before a note has even been sung, and even during her introduction of the piece, the drone is already playing and setting the atmosphere. The piece itself is devotional, a musical offering from the Tirupavai verses sung each December during the Tamil month of Margazi. These songs, written over thousands of years ago by poet Saint Andal, celebrate longing, faith, and spiritual awakening. This is what makes the Carnatic drone so extraordinary. It's not accompaniment, it's devotion-made sound, a living musical presence that transforms a hall into sacred space. Even for someone who isn't spiritual, it creates a sense of connection, something I can only really replicate through music, because music is one of the most universal messages we have as humans. It can enlighten, move, and shape us without the use of any spoken word. Something as simple as different combinations of pitches has the power to evoke something unexplainable. But India wasn't the only culture to find something sacred in a sustained drone. Across the world, other civilizations discovered the same truth. Over 3,000 miles away, inside ancient churches' walls, who still carry the weight of centuries, a different use of drones took place. This is Byzantine chant, the musical language of the Eastern Orthodox Church. And just like Carnatic music, the foundation is a drone, here called the Isin. It's a single pitch sung continuously by one or more chanters supporting the lead melody. The Isin wasn't always part of the tradition. Early Christian chant was purely monophonic. one voice, one melody. But by the 10th or 11th century, the drone emerged as a way to stabilize the mode, almost like an anchor that keeps the melody from drifting. And it works the same way as the Carnatic shruti. The melody is free, ornate, constantly moving, but in Byzantine chant, the drone isn't just a pitch. It's theology. It symbolizes the voice of the church itself, unwavering, grounding, and eternal. The lead cantor sings the words of the liturgy, but the Eisen represents the community supporting him, holding the spiritual space. The architecture of these churches is also designed to keep sound echoing and reverberating for as long as possible, to mesmerize listeners and to create a sense of an otherworldly presence. This sonic architecture turns stone, incense, echo, and voice into one continuous prayer. But not every drum tradition expresses spirituality through stillness. Some do it through breath, motion, and raw physical energy. In Northern Australia, among the Aboriginal peoples, especially in the Yolgnu of Arnhem Land, the didgeridoo isn't just an instrument, it's a spiritual tool, a ceremonial voice, and one of the oldest continuously played drone instruments on the earth. Like the shruti box or the Eisen, it creates a drone. But the similarity ends there. Instead of calm sustain, the didgeridoo uses circular breathing, rhythmic pulses, animal imitations, and vocal tones. The drone becomes alive, breathing, shifting, and almost speaking. Traditionally, the instrument was played in ceremonial contexts, especially in the Bangul dance ceremonies of Arnhem Land. There, the didgeridoo accompanies singing, clapsticks, and dancing, acting as a rhythmic anchor and a spiritual connection to the dreaming, or sometimes referred to as dreamtime, which is the Aboriginal understanding of the world's creation, ancestral beings, and the laws of existence. Just like in India and Australia, the idea of a sustained note shows up again in a completely different corner of the world. But here, the drone doesn't create stillness or spiritual grounding, it creates strength, a call across pastures, mountains, and battlefields. The Celtic bagpipe, found in Scotland, Ireland, Brittany, Galicia, and other regions, is one of the world's most recognizable drone instruments. Its sound is unmistakable, a constant multi-note drone underneath a piercing, expressive melody played on the chanter. Like many ancient instruments, bagpipes evolved from simple reed pipes and bladder instruments. But what makes them so special is the triple drone system, typically tuned to the tonic and the octave, forming an unbroken sonic floor. It turns the melody into something that feels heroic, mournful, and deeply human. Historically, bagpipes were used for far more than just musical leisure. They carried signals across long distances, rallied warriors, marked funerals, honored clans, and guided rituals. For many Celtic cultures, the drone created a sense of identity. It was the sound of home. And drones might feel like something of the past, more founded in traditional music of different cultures, but I can assure you that's far from the truth. It resurfaced in the mid-20th century when a group of Western composers began rethinking what music could be. They turned away from complex harmonies and rapid shifts, focusing instead on repetition, long tones, and gradual transformation. This movement became known as minimalism, and for many of those composers, the drone was their foundation. Figures like Lamont T. Young, Terry Riley, and later Philip Glass explored the sound in a way that felt almost radical for Western tradition. Instead of treating a sustained note as background, they placed it at the center. Pieces would evolve slowly, sometimes even hours, with the drone acting as a constant thread the listener could ground themselves in. This approach wasn't invented in the West, of course, though. Several of these composers openly drew inspiration from Indian classical music, trance traditions, and non-Western tuning systems. But minimalism transformed those ideas into something new, music that invites listeners to experience time differently. Instead of following a melody, line, or dramatic arc, you're invited to sit inside the sound itself. One of the most prominent breakthroughs of this sound was Terry Riley's piece titled In C. Composed in 1964, this is one of the foundational works of Western minimalism. The entire piece is built from these 53 short musical patterns, each only a few notes long. Any number of musicians can play it using whatever instruments they choose. What makes In C unique is its structure. Every performer repeats each pattern as many times as they want before moving on to the next one. The ensemble slowly drifts forward together, but never in perfect unison. This creates a constantly shifting texture, dense in moments, almost transparent in others. With every player choosing their own pacing, the piece rewrites itself each time. It can never be performed the same way twice. Throughout the entire piece, one element stays fixed, a steady pulse on the pitch C, traditionally played by piano or marimba. That repeating pulse gives the music its center, allowing all overlapping patterns to stay grounded even as they move independently. The result is music that feels both structured and yet free. It showed Western composers that repetition, gradual change, and a single tonal center could create an entire musical universe. In minimalism, the drone becomes a space where tiny changes feel enormous, where repetition becomes motion, and where listening becomes an active, immersive experience. And if at this point you're thinking, okay, but that's all old music or weird experimental stuff, I'll stop you there again. Drones are everywhere, in pop music, in film music, in ambient tracks you study to. You've heard them 1,000 times, you just didn't realize it yet. And once you start listening for that feeling of continuity, you hear it everywhere, from classic rock to modern cinema. One of the clearest examples, a song you probably know by heart, Blackbird by the Beatles. On the surface, Blackbird isn't drone music. There's no tambura, there's no bagpipe, no continuous sustained pitch even. But listen closely. This recording of Blackbird being performed by Brad Meldau shows how this tonic note here is repeated consistently throughout the entire piece. It functions almost like a soft drum, a steady, grounding presence that carries the entire emotional message of the song. And that message matters. McCartney wrote Blackbird in 1968, inspired by the civil rights movement, particularly black women facing racial injustice. The simplicity of the accompaniment is part of the symbolism itself. It's gentle, unwavering, and grounded. If Blackbird shows the drone's emotional simplicity, artists like Radiohead take it somewhere entirely different. In Everything in Its Right Place, the track is built around a static, looping synthesizer chord. While subtle harmonic shifts happen, that unchanging sustained layer creates a hypnotic, suspended atmosphere. This is what gives it its meditative and unsettling quality. Tom York, Radiohead's frontman, wrote the song after experiencing burnout, exhaustion, and what he described as a mental collapse following the massive success of OK Computer in 1997. He was struggling with depression and felt disconnected from his own creative process. York said the song was written in about half an hour on a synthesizer after a long creative block. He described it as finally getting everything in its right place. Not in the sense of perfection, but in the sense of finding some balance amidst chaos. The drone here mirrors York's state of mind, a static backdrop that feels both comforting and claustrophobic. As the piece grows in intensity, we get melodic phrases that add even more tension. This minor sixth that keeps resolving to the dominant adds such an emotional pull to the piece. Just like in traditional drone music, the steadiness forces the listener to focus on the subtle shifts and textures, embodying the feeling of being stuck yet present. Going further down this rabbit hole of tension, drones can even leave you unsettled and even terrified by refusing to move. Colin Stetson's piece, Dreaming, from the iconic horror movie Hereditary, is a perfect example. At its core, it's built on a sustained throbbing drone, but instead of clarity or peace, it gives you this tight, claustrophobic pressure. The bass saxophone growls, the overtones shimmer in and out of tune, and the sound feels like it's breathing down your neck. It's hypnotic, but in a way that makes your chest tighten. Where the drones we've heard so far created grounding, spiritual space, ceremonial energy, and a sense of home, Stetson drone does the exact opposite. It traps you. It holds you in suspense as you're stuck inside a single unchanging sound that feels alive but unpredictable, like something is waiting just outside the frame. This is the other side of the drone, the side that horror films and psychological thrillers borrow all the time. That slow building tension, the feeling that the ground beneath you isn't safe. A drone can be a sanctuary or a warning. And before I invite you to watch the debut of my first original composition, I want to end with one last piece of film music. Maybe one of the most beautiful modern uses of drone-like textures appears in a place you wouldn't expect, Pixar's Soul. In the track Epiphany, composed by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, there isn't a literal drone. There's no single pitch held for minutes, but the music is built on a steady, glowing tonal bed that never really changes. It's minimal, spacious, and almost weightless. That steadiness behaves like a drone, holding open and emotional space for the moment when the protagonist realizes that life's meaning isn't some grand achievement, it's the small things. A breeze, a smile, a meal with friends, simply experiencing being alive. The music works because it gives you time. It suspends everything, the plot, the tension, even your sense of direction. So you can actually feel what the protagonist is feeling. It's the drone's power in its purest and gentlest form, not to overwhelm you or convince you of something, but to let you breathe, to let something small become vast and resonant, and to let any small moments you've probably shrugged off day to day to become suddenly reflective and meaningful. After traveling across continents and centuries, after hearing drones used for devotion, identity, tension, and ritual, we end here, with a simple, sustained sound that holds meaning without saying a word. A reminder that music, like life, doesn't always need motion to move. So if there's one thing I hope you take from this, it's this. Let yourself slow down. Let yourself notice the things that don't ask for your attention, but quietly shape your world anyway. We're living in a time where everything pushes us outwards, to scroll, to compare, to keep up, to live inside other people's highlight reels. There isn't much room left to just be. And maybe that's the real purpose of this video, and of the piece I'm gonna play for you. Not to teach you every history or tradition, not to show you how complicated music can be, but to give you a moment, one moment to breathe, to notice, to feel the weight of being alive without having to perform it. If a single sustained tone can travel thousands of years and still calm the human mind, then maybe you can let that same steadiness back into your own life, even for a few seconds a day. A drone doesn't move, but it helps you move inwards. And they're even in spaces that aren't inherently musical. Notice the hum of your toothbrush, or the AC unit in your apartment, a construction drill, a distant lawnmower. They're all tiny drones, reminders that stillness is always there beneath the noise. And if this piece does anything for you, I hope it gives you a little space in a world that rarely remembers to. Now, without further ado, please enjoy my original composition, Stillness in Motion, for drone and 2 saxophones, performed by my amazing colleague Josh Ebert and myself, Colin Juniper. Thank you.